All right, hopefully after the last video you have a better idea on whether or not you want to be looking into grad schools or looking into industry. And I'd say that if you're part of the unsure camp, you'll want to proceed with the following steps using both paths, using both an industry path and potentially a grad school path, at least until through your junior year. Now, as an upperclassman, the way that you network, it doesn't change all that much from what you have already been doing as an underclassman. There are just extra layers that are added on top of this. And usually this is junior, senior year is about the time that most undergrads start their networking process. So if you started earlier, like I suggested, you'll have at least have a leg up over your fellow students. But if you find yourself in that boat, just get started as fast as you can. It's better to have some than obviously have none. So starting the summer after your sophomore year, this is where you really have to ask the question of yourself on whether or not you want this industry job or research job based more on the kind of work that you'll be doing. And this is looking forward to the next year. So by the end of the summer in your sophomore year, you want to know if you want to apply to internships in industry. This is more towards if you want to go an industrial route, or if you potentially want to apply to a co-op internship. The difference here is that a co-op internship is one where you work for anywhere from 6 months to 1 year, and you wind up taking 1 to 2 semesters off. I'm not sure how well that would work out with Trinity scholarships, and for the chemistry department, that's definitely not a great idea. But if you are a chemical engineering major, then definitely you want to try to get yourself an internship, or a co-op would be even better. Just to get your, you can't imitate a plant experience very well in the lab. Whereas for chemistry majors, when you're doing the laboratory-based research, you are roughly approximating bench chemistry research that would be done in the plant anyway. So another thing that you can consider in the summer of your sophomore year is whether or not you want to broaden your research experience. And for most of you, at least in the Trinity chemistry department, that answer is probably no. It's in your best interest to stay in the research group where you are, or to switch to a research group within a department that interests you. But let's say that there's a research group or a research field that really interests you, but none of the professors here research it. So this is where REUs come in. It stands for Research Experience for Undergrads, and it's a program run through the NSF. This is it's functionally identical to Trinity's summer research program, only instead of obviously staying at school for the summer and doing research at Trinity, you would then go to a different school for the summer and do research in one of their research labs. And again, this is only if you can't find a particular research field that interests you at Trinity itself. I would advise you to stay here, especially since you can work on it over the summer, or not over the summer, over the school year, maybe 10 hours a week during the school year. You'll get a lot more work done, and that looks better on graduate school applications. But the option is there for you. Now, moving back to the internships, if those are something you want to apply for, start in late July before your junior year, and keep applying throughout the year. There's a little bit of a hiring freeze between, say, the middle of November until about the middle of January, mostly because hiring is pretty time-consuming, especially with HR departments, and so they tend not to do that as much during the holidays, but they definitely start in late July, like mid to late July. So that's when you want to be starting too. So as I mentioned before, a lot of your networking will be the same as an underclassman, this being those informational interviews and approaching people who work in the field so you can find out what they do and start to see yourself in some of these positions. So as an upperclassman, you will be doing a couple of different things. The first is that this is starting your junior year. This is really where you should start attending meetings. Now, this would be like the student group meetings that are of professional societies that are run at Trinity, but you also want to start attending at least the local ACS meetings. Now, meetings can be classified into local, regional, and national. Local would be those local ACS meetings that meet in San Antonio once a month. I'm not sure if they have a local AICHE, but you definitely want to attend the student group meeting of those just to broaden your horizons a bit. Regionally, the Southwest Catalysis Society meeting meets every April, in Houston, and we tend to send a group out for that and do poster presentations. Even if you are younger and don't have enough material for a poster yet, it is still a very valuable meeting, and you get to meet a lot of people who work in both industry and academia. So you get to kill a couple birds with one stone in that meeting. Plus, it's relatively small. The smaller the meeting, the better your networking opportunities that are available to you. In terms of national meetings, you want to be looking at the ACS national meeting, maybe the AICHE national meeting. There's also the North American Catalysis Society meeting, which is every other year, as is the Organic Reactions Catalysis Society. Now, as an undergrad, especially in Dr. Chandler's group, he tends to send upperclassmen to the ACS national meeting, usually in their senior year. Even if you only go to one, it's a great experience, and this gives you a lot of opportunities to meet with people maybe a little more into your job search, or give you other schools to look at if you're taking a gap year, for instance. So that is it on meetings. So by the end of your junior year, your sixth semester, this is really where you're making the decision on whether or not you're going to grad school or getting a job. And if you're uncertain, you want to err on the side of covering more bases. So look into both jobs and grad school at this point. So starting in that sixth semester, you're going to be branching out and looking into different areas of research that might interest you, and then finding professors that do work in that area or in those fields, and getting in contact with them and just speaking with them about it. A number of these could be people that you met or heard about at meetings, or especially had come as a seminar speaker, and that's something starting your junior year. Meet with the seminar speakers, go to lunch with them. They're always looking for people to do that, and it gives you a great chance to at least speak to people with from the academic background. Some of them have an industry background too. So yeah, contact the professors, and during that summer between your junior and senior year, that's where you're doing a lot of the prep for graduate school. I'm going to make a separate video on that because there's a lot of different steps involved. But part of that prep, obviously, is learning about what interests you, what areas you want to go. This is where you're making contacts with professors in the department for letters of recommendation. There's a lot of information to go over. It can feel a bit overwhelming. I highly recommend speaking with the professors to at least give you the lay of the land. The professors at Trinity, they'll give you the lay of the land and give you some really good suggestions on places you can look first. That's the summer before your senior year. So yeah, and starting in late July, if you're not going to grad school, if you're in that uncertain boat, instead of applying to internships this time, now you're just applying to jobs. Because again, a number of companies that are looking to fill positions for the next year will start putting their postings up. And this is actually a good time to acclimate yourself with the process, learn where to find the jobs, because in case there isn't something available in the fall, you're able to attack it in the spring a whole lot harder. So also in this, in going into your senior year, you want to consider getting on the executive board of the ACS, or the student ACS chapter, specifically if you're interfacing with professionals outside of the department, or you get extra opportunities to meet with speakers or faculty candidates, because every opportunity you have to speak with more people, obviously the better. The wider this network you can make for yourself, the better. And really, that's about it. Once you start that formal job search, you're able to call on your network, and by this time you'll have a much larger network. This applies if you're going for internships, or when you start applying for jobs. You're able to contact people who you've spoken with in the past and say, hey, is there anything available? Or you see a job listing for a company and you've done an informational interview with someone at that company, so you can ask them, you can get back in touch with them and ask if there'll be a reference for you on the application, and if they're associated with the department, if they can put in a good word for you. It's all about getting in the interview room. So I'm going to have a separate video also on the job process, and that's going to be the same for whether or not you are going to grad school immediately or whether or not you're getting a job immediately. The job process is pretty similar. It's just the kinds of jobs you're applying to are different. So, as I mentioned, this doesn't really change much for the grad students. But it's very easy for a grad student to say, I'll take my first year off. And honestly, I wouldn't blame you for that. The first year of grad school is very tough. But it usually becomes taking the first 3 to 4 years off and only really start getting your networking in gear when you're thinking about writing your dissertation. And by that point, I think this is where a lot of people start, but I don't think you're doing yourself any favors by starting that late. So, especially since a PhD degree would take 4 to 5 years on average. So if you're taking 5 years to do that, you should be doing these informational interviews for at least 3.5 to 4 of those years, if not longer. That way you will just know more people. So I hope this has been a good look at networking. I'm far from a networking professional, but it's just various mistakes that I have made throughout undergrad and grad school that I think could have helped me during my formal job search. Again, listen to other videos of people who are talking about networking, read other articles about it. You're going to get a lot of different opinions out there, and you can find one that more closely matches your particular communication style and how you prefer to build relationships.